What's up, guys? How are you guys doing today? Yeah? Woo! High school. Man, it's a party, right? Ready? You guys are ready for summer to be over? We're in the second month of summer. No, you're not ready? Y'all look ready. Look like you just showed up out of bed, like you brought your bed here. And you're just like, I'm just, I have to be here so I don't get fined, right? Who is looking forward towards school? Who's going to school this high school? Who's any graduated seniors in the house? Graduated seniors? Anybody graduated yet? Okay, nobody's graduated. Okay, so everybody's going to school this fall, right? Everybody excited to be able to go to school. Is school going to be different this year? Anybody heard about like any mask restrictions or anything like that? No, we haven't heard. Okay, all right, I'm just asking. I don't know. Anyways, so my name is Michael. I'm one of the pastors here. I get to hang out with YX, and thank you guys for letting me feel cool once a month. I love just feeling young. You guys make me feel young and old at the same time because I say things, and then you guys are like, "That's not what we say anymore." So. Like rad. No, I don't say rad. Okay, so we're finishing up our series that we've been in Hebrews chapter 12, and we're talking about how we can have a faith that doesn't fizzle out at the end, that a faith that can hold strong. And so you guys have been journeying along the last several weeks in this chapter, which is the book of Hebrews is one of the most powerful books and one of the best books if you're trying to understand what it really means to follow Jesus. And so I know that some of you in here are Christians and some of you may not be Christians, and that's okay. This book is a really good book to kind of help you dive into what that could potentially look like. So we have 12 verses that we're going to be reading through today, and I'm going to try to talk through each of them so that you understand kind of what's happening in the story here in the text. And then I have a big idea I want you to take home. So I'm going to give you the big idea up front, so that way back then or back in the end, we can come back to it. So the big idea today that I want you guys to understand is that an enduring faith celebrates what can't be shaken. I'm going to say that one more time. An enduring faith, a faith that lasts, a faith that holds on, that perseveres through everything else, celebrates what can't be shaken, okay? So that's what we're going to be, that's the big idea today that I want you to take home with. We have 12 verses to get through. Now, I was wondering, did anybody bring a paper Bible today? Anybody bring a paper Bible? Who? No, like a student. A student brought a paper Bible. If you brought a paper Bible, raise your hand. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. Come collect your big $5 bill. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, look at this. It smells like a McDonald's French fries, sweetie. Not Chick-fil-A today because they're closed on the Lord's Day. But there you go. See? That's what you get for bringing a paper Bible. Yes. Now, some of you are like, what's a paper Bible? Okay. Go ahead and hold that paper Bible up. Hold it up. See? Okay, that's a paper Bible. It has like a bound on it. It has the Holy Bible book on it. Okay. That you open it up and it has the words of Jesus and other people in it, okay? So back in the day when I was young, I know I feel old, I'm 35, we used to have Bibles, like paper, and so we didn't have phones. Actually, we did have phones, but they were flip phones, and you had to like T9, so like if you wanted to text your girlfriend, you'd be like, I love L, and it was 10 cents, so... There was no way of reading the Bible in those days. But anyways, okay. So 12 verses. Let's jump into it. All right. So Hebrews chapter 12. Here we go. Starting at verse 18. It says, "You have not come to a physical mountain, to a place of flaming fire, darkness, gloom, and whirlwind, as the Israelites did at Mount Sinai. For they heard an awesome trumpet blast and a voice so terrible that they begged God to stop speaking." Okay. Here's where we are. Now, the writer, who we don't know who it is, there's speculations about there's different people who wrote the Bible. We don't really know who wrote the book of Hebrews. But whoever this writer is, he wants you and I to understand that there's a difference between the faith that we have now versus how people related to God back then. So he's going to use an illustration, okay? He's going to use what was versus what is. He's going to compare and contrast our faith nowadays versus the faith of people back then and how they related to God versus now how we related to God. So the first example he gives is he says, you have not come to this physical mountain, a place of flaming fire, darkness and gloom and whirlwind, as the Israelites did at Mount Sinai, okay? So back in the day, after God rescues the Israelites from Egypt, they end up at this mountain called Mount Sinai, okay? And the way they related to God wasn't like you and I, how like we can literally like be in our rooms, we put on like Jesus is my boyfriend music, right? And then we can like talk to God. We can like, oh Jesus, you're so awesome, you're great. Like today, I told a lie, but I know you forgive me because you're cool, right? That's how we relate to God. We can do that. Back in those days, they couldn't really do that. The way they related to God was God's presence first was on this huge mountain, okay? And they had to send up this dude named Moses to go talk to God. They couldn't go. It wasn't like you just be like, I need to go talk to God, did some stuff. No, you didn't do that. And this mountain had like this huge cloud around it. It was always thunderstorming. I know we don't know what that is because we live in California, but the water comes out of the sky. It's called rain. It's weird. I know. Okay? And there's like these little like scrickety things in the sky that if you touch, you will die. It's called lightning. Okay? So all that happens. And that's how they related to God back then. I mean, he was huge and scary. I mean, can you imagine like if you go home, let's say you go home today, right? And you like want to ask your parents for, I don't know, the car to drive. Who drives in here? Okay, good, because nobody drove in J-High. Okay, so some of you drive, okay? So you go home and you're like, hey, mom and dad, I want to use the car. In order for you to do that, you have to go upstairs. Imagine you'd have to go upstairs, okay? Who has a 2-story home? Anybody 2-story homes? Okay, good. Okay, so you walk upstairs, right, to your 2-story home. You go upstairs, and then like, when you get to the master bedroom, the room with the double doors and stuff, it's shrouded in like dark clouds. Okay, imagine that. Dark clouds. There's thunder and lightning, right? And you can't touch the door because if you touch the door, you will die. That's just basically how it is, okay? And so you have to like kill an animal, okay? Probably your pet dog that you have because dogs are bad. And then that's the only way you could talk to God or to your parents. And then once you killed the animal and sacrificed it, then your parents would be like, what do you want? And you say, oh, I want to use the car. Why do you want to use the car? Right? And you'd be like, oh, because I want to go see my friend. Who is your friend? And you're like, well, never mind. Psych, I was just kidding. That's how the people of God back in the day related to God. That's how it was. Why? Because, see, God was perfect and we were not. We were not perfect. We had all the mistakes. And God was this perfect being. And so God couldn't even be like in our like right here, right now. And so the writer wants us to understand that this way, this Mount Sinai way, was this really dark and scary place. I mean, even every time they got close to the mountain, the writer writes that this trumpet would get louder. You ever watch like scary movies? Anybody seen Quiet Place 2? It's like awesome, right? It's really good. Okay, so you watch a scary movie, and you know how when the people are always getting close to the killer, for some reason, I don't know why they're getting close to the killer, you would want to move opposite. But as they're getting close to the killer, the music like intensifies. It's like, I don't know how to make scary movies, but I imagine that it sounds something like that, right? That's what it was like. This trumpet would just get louder and louder and louder. I mean, it was crazy. Here, check out this next verse in verse 20. It says, they staggered back under God's command. And this is what God commanded. He said, if even an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned to death. Now, wait, hold on a second. Like, this is how much we have to distance ourselves from God, that you couldn't even touch the mountain. You couldn't just be walking by and be like, next you know, somebody be clobbing you with a rock just randomly. You didn't even know. They don't even know how they knew you touched the mountain. But somehow they would know. You couldn't even get any close. Your animal couldn't get any close to the mountain. The only person who could go up this mountain and have this connection and communication with God was a guy named Moses. You know the story, right? Moses was, tending to his sheep, and the sheep went into this cave, and he walks into this cave, and this bush is on fire. We know what fire looks like. We live in California, right? So we see a lot of fire, right? This bush is on fire, but it's not burning down, which is weird in and of itself. And then the bush starts talking. There's he must be inhaling all the smoke here, which is normal in California, right? Inhaling all this stuff. And so he's talking to this bush, and Moses and God have this interaction, and now Moses can talk to him. But it's still scary for Moses. I mean, it says here, even Moses was frightened. He even tells God, hey, God, I'm a little terrified, and I'm trembling right now because you look a little scary. You acting real scary right now. That's how our faith was back then. It was kind of scary to be a follower of God back in the day, like in the old days, right? Now, there are some things in that I can think that are pretty terrifying. I mean, I'm sure you could think of some of the things that are pretty terrifying in your life. But I never imagine my faith with God being terrifying, right? I don't think of following Jesus as something that's super scary. But I can think of a couple other things that would scare the bejesus, as I like to say, out of me, like just really terrifying. Here, take a look at this video. I want to show you this video real quick. This would be one thing that's super terrifying.
Qu'est-ce que tu fais, toi, là? Tu t'es perdu ou quoi? Ça gagne, ça. À l'aise. C'est bon, man. Quand tu veux.
Yes. Somebody's saying no, but yes. Now, just so you know, it wasn't until this morning. I saw this last week. I saw this video last week, and I couldn't see the part where his parachute came out, so I literally thought he jumped without a parachute. I really did. I thought he was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go see Jesus. How many of you would jump? How many of you would do that jump? With a parachute. With a parachute. Okay, good. I like that. You would too? Okay. How many of you would do without a parachute? Okay, like several people in the J High said they would. But, it's junior high, right? How many of you would do it with a parachute if I said $10 million? I'll give you $10 million. I give you $10 million to make that jump with a parachute. Would you really do it? No, it's easy for you to say right now because you're sitting in the comfort of your chair. But if I literally took you to the San Francisco Bridge, the Golden Bridge, and took you up top and had you jump, would you really do it for $10 million? $10 million. $10 million. Do you know how fast $10 million goes? I don't know. I've never had $10 million, but I imagine it goes pretty fast. So you do $10 million. Okay. All right. That's understandable. Okay. So, yeah, it is about 2 years of college. Not even 2 years of college these days, depending on where you go. So that's pretty crazy. That's kind of scary, no lie. Let me tell you another really terrifying moment in my life. So when I just graduated high school, I had saved all my money, and I was going to buy a car, okay? And some of you can relate to this. For those of you who are going to be seniors and don't drive, you're going to get a car. For those of you who already drive, you're already spoiled, so you already know what it's like to have a car, okay? So I was going to get a car after I had my license for a couple years, so I didn't have a car. So I was going to buy this car. So I read in this. So back in the day when because I'm kind of old, we had these things called Auto Trader magazines. Okay, so that's how you would find a car. You didn't just get online because back then online was still you log in and it was like. That's what online was back then. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember that. And so you get on. You read this magazine and you see all these cars. So I found this brand new 1999 red Pontiac Sunfire. I mean, it was beautiful red. It was hot red. And I was like, oh, man, if I get that car, I'm going to have all the girls. I just knew it. I knew that was the car. It said Michael Girl Magnet, right? Okay? That I was going to anyway. So that was the car. So I save my money. I show up at the dealership. I give them the check. I sign the papers, okay? I get in the car. Now, a couple things I noticed very quickly. First, the gear, the thingy that goes north and south, that thing goes, it goes like park, drive, reverse. No, not drive's up there. Park, reverse, neutral, drive, L1, L2. Okay, that one. Okay. So I get in there, and I notice it doesn't just go north and south. It also goes east, west, north, south, west, all like that stuff. I was like, what is this? And it has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, R. And I figured out R was reverse. But I didn't understand why it was doing all this. I'm like, that's weird. That's broken. And then as I'm getting ready to get out of the car to tell the guy, I noticed there's 3 pedals on the floor. And I'm like, okay, I remember the brake and the gas. What is that? Is that like the nitrous pedal? Like if I double push, my car will fly? Like I really did not know. I know you guys like, you're an idiot. Yes, I was an idiot. I didn't know what that was. So I get out of the car. I say, excuse me, sir. I think there's something wrong with this car. First of all, the shifter thingy is broken. It goes all different ways. And you have 3 pedals. Is that the nitrous pedal? Because that's awesome. He said, no, that's called the clutch. And this car is a stick shift. And I was like, a stick shift? I didn't pay for a stick shift. I paid for an automatic. He said, no, this is a stick shift. So I showed him the ad when it says it's an automatic. He goes, oh, I'm so sorry. It's a misprint. I was like, all right, well, I need a different car. He goes, it's no refunds. I'm like, oh my gosh. What am I supposed to do with this car? I just bought it. Like, I don't know how to drive it. He's like, don't worry, I'll give you a lesson. So literally in the dealership parking lot, I learned how to drive stick shift. Now, anybody ever driven a stick shift before? Got a couple stick shift. Okay, so you know what happens when you take your foot off the clutch and the car's in gear, right? What happens? It stalls. Anybody ever been in a car that stalled? Yeah. You know what it feels like, right? It goes like, right? It makes like a little shaky noise, and it always jumps forward. So I literally stalled like 27 times on the way out of that thing, okay? Like I'd be like, start it over again. I finally made it a couple miles down the road to the McDonald's because I was hungry. So I'm in the drive-thru at McDonald's, okay? And I ordered the food, and I was able to get the vehicle to the drive-thru window to pay, and I go to pull out my wallet, and I take my foot off the clutch, and the car's in gear. And the car goes, boom, just like that, right into a vehicle in front of me. It hits it, okay? Now, that alone is terrifying of itself, right? To hit somebody. Anybody ever been in an accident? Yeah. Anybody ever caused the accident? Yeah, she said, yes. Look at my insurance. It's really high. Okay? So I hit this car in front of me. So I'm like, oh, crap. Well, I see what is like a double watermelon-sized head start to get out of the car. I mean, it's huge. The head is so big. And then I see like these biceps that had like a mountain on top of a mountain on top of a mountain. Like it's getting out of the car. I mean, this huge dude, I mean, he's like, what do you guys call him? Swole? Do you guys say that word nowadays? You say swole? Guys, help me out here. Do you say swole? No? You don't say swole? No? Some of these high school guys are like, you're a loser. Okay, so like he was huge. He was buff. You say buff? You say buff? Okay. He was buff. Sure. We'll help you out, Michael. Okay. So he was really big, right? I mean, he was so big. I mean, he gets out of the car. The car lifted up when he got out of it. That's how big he was. It was like, I was like, oh, man, those springs are feeling real good right now. So he's huge. And he gets out of the car, and he starts walking back. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to die in this McDonald's parking lot. I'm going to literally see Jesus with a Happy Meal. This is great, right? So I start praying, I'm start doing all these different, I don't even know. I didn't even have beads on me. I would have done anything in that moment, okay? I was sweating so much, I had water stains. That's how scared I was, okay? So he comes to the car, and so I'm like, okay, I guess I should roll down the windows. So I roll down the windows. So it's like, one of those crankshaft windows. And he leans down. And I swear to you, I'm super scared at this moment. And he leans down, and he says, are you okay? Literally, his voice. He had so much steroids. This is a lesson for you guys. Stay away from steroids. Stay away from the roids, okay? I was literally terrified until I heard his voice. Now, there are a lot of things in life that you're going to be terrified of. There are a lot of things in life that you're going to deal with. Things that you're not going to have an answer for. Things that you just don't know the outcome of. And the one thing that you shouldn't be terrified of is your faith. The one thing that you should not be afraid of is how you can relate to the God who created you, who loves you, who died for you. And that's what this writer wants you and I to understand. That we don't live the faith of the Israelites. We don't live in this thing that we have to be scared of and have to have somebody go talk to us. We actually live in a different perspective. Look at verse where he talks about this second mountain in verse 22. He's going to compare and contrast this mountain. He says, now you've come to Mount Zion, to a city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to the countless thousands of angels in a joyful gathering. You have come to the assembly of God in the firstborn children whose names are written in heaven. Next, sorry. You have come to God himself, who is the judge over all things. You have come to the Spirit of the righteous ones in heaven, who have now been made perfect. Go to the next slide. You have come to Jesus, the one who mediates the new covenant between God and his people, and to the sprinkled blood, which speaks of forgiveness instead of crying out for vengeance like the blood of Abel. So I'm going to come back to that last section about Abel, but you see the contrast between the two mountains? So you have this really scary mountain that's not bad, because God is not bad. It's just a different way that the people relate it to God. Versus this new mountain, which he calls Mount Zion, which is really just another name for heaven. That's what he's talking about. That we literally get to come to heaven. We get to go to heaven and be right in the presence of God. We don't need some high mountain, some intermediary person. We can't touch it. It's not like the scariness. We actually get to be in direct connection with God. Now, I know a lot of us, we don't like to talk about death. Death is like a scary thing, right? I mean, you guys are young, so you assume that you have so much life to live, which is fair. It's totally fair. When you're young like that, you have so much life to live. Me, I'm 35. I'm probably going to die tomorrow, right? I'm old. But here's the thing. Life is not promised to each of us. We could literally leave outside, walk outside today, and a meteor just hits real life church. We're done. It would be the most unluckiest of people we've ever been. But it could happen, okay? Something can happen today going home. Something can happen tomorrow, next week, whatever. We all know that life it can be fleeting. And so the writer doesn't want you to fear what could happen at the end of your life, because it's the one thing that is unshakable. Now, why is it unshakable? Well, the writer kind of alludes to this. You guys all know the story of Cain and Abel, right? You've heard of the story? Everybody heard the story of Cain and Abel? Okay, I'm just real quick, just as an overview. So basically at the beginning, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the Bible, right, there's Adam and Eve, right? They're in the garden. They eat the fruit. God's mad. They get sent out of the garden, right? They end up having kids, Cain and Abel. So one day, Cain and Abel, they're making a sacrifice to God. Back in those days, remember Scary Mountain God? Well, one of the ways that you were able to talk and connect to God was through a sacrifice. And not just any old sacrifice like, oh, I'm going to give up my phone for a week, God. Love you, right? It wasn't like that. It was like, oh, let me take my pet sheep, Billy, and kill it and spill blood for it. That's how you would, that's a sacrifice, right? Crazy, okay? And so they would do that. Well, one day, Abel made a good sacrifice to God. Made a great one. God loved it. But then Cain made a sacrifice that God didn't really like. And so Cain gets jealous of Abel and literally kills him with a rock across his head. Yeah, that happened. Yeah. She's like, what? There's murder in the Bible? Yes, there is. Now, some of you think about that with your little brothers and sisters. I know you do. I see it in your eyes. You need help. You need Jesus, okay? Don't be doing that to your brothers and sisters. So, when Cain kills Abel, now Abel's innocent, right? Because he didn't do anything wrong. Am I right? He didn't do anything wrong, right? So he's innocent. So the blood, as the writer talks about, he's saying that blood cries out for vengeance. Because that blood was innocent. It didn't do anything wrong. But the writer compares that blood to an even greater sacrifice, Jesus. Now, what's the difference between Jesus and Abel? Because they're both innocent when they died, right? They were both innocent. The difference is that Abel wasn't perfect. Abel made mistakes. Abel messed up. Even though he died an innocent death, he wasn't perfect. Jesus was perfect. He never made a mistake. And so his blood covers everybody's, because he was the perfect mediator between us and God. Because see, before Jesus, God looked at his creation, he looked at you and I, and honestly, he just saw our mistakes. He saw our sin. But when Jesus died, Jesus makes us clean. We actually, all the mistakes that we've ever made, The mistakes that we're making now and the mistakes that we will make in the future, they've been covered by Jesus' innocent, perfect death. And so now we actually can be found in Christ. Like we can literally, God looks at us and he only sees his innocent son. And he loves us for that. And so the writer wants us to understand that now we don't have to live in this kind of faith that's really scary, that is kind of far away, that is like a distant God. No. Actually, we live in a faith that God is right here, present now. Now, why is that super important? Well, this next verse right here in starting at verse 25 is going to explain why it's important for us to understand that we have this superior relationship with Jesus. It says, "Be careful that you do not refuse to listen to the one who is speaking, for if the people of Israel did not escape when they refused to listen to Moses, the earthly messenger, we will certainly not escape if we reject the one who speaks to us from heaven." Next verse. "When God spoke from Mount Sinai, his voice shook the earth, but now he makes another promise. Once again, I will shake not only the earth, but the heavens also. This means that all of creation will be shaken and removed so that only unshakable things will remain." This is why it's important. You see, in our lifetime, we are going to encounter things that will be shaken. In all of our life, we're going to deal with things that are just going to be just difficult. Some of us are walking through that right now. Some of us in our homes, we're walking through our parents. They're always fighting and arguing. Some of our parents might be already separated or going through a separation. Some of you are walking through the loss of finances in your home, and that's starting to affect you, right? Some of you, maybe you've had some tragedy happen in your life. You lost a loved one, a family member to death, or you lost a friendship because of an argument or a disagreement, right? Some of you are, you went through a crazy school year. We all did. Not me, but you did. You went through a crazy school year, and that changed some things. I mean, all of us are walking through all the cultural and social issues that we're seeing all over social media in the world. People are telling you how you should think and what you should think and how you should treat people and people you should be with and people you shouldn't like. And there's just so much going on. And this whole thing, it's so shaken. It's so messed up. And in the midst of all of that, what the writer wants you to understand is that even when your world feels like it's falling apart, the one thing that is true, the one thing that holds together is your relationship with Jesus. It doesn't fizzle out. It doesn't fizzle out when things get shaken. Why? Because an enduring faith celebrates what can't be shaken. If you have the right kind of faith, even when everything else is falling apart, that's the one thing that's going to hold you together is your relationship with Jesus. And I know that there might be some of you this morning who are like, I don't have this relationship with Jesus. And you're just still trying to figure out. Can I just tell you that when the going gets tough, when things get confusing, when you feel like you're all alone, when there feel like there's no answers to your problems, feel like there's no way out, the one thing that's really going to get you through the storm, not around the storm, not avoiding the storm, not over the storm, but the thing that's going to get you through it, that you're going to be able to make it through the storm, is a relationship with Jesus. And that's what this author, this writer wants us to understand. That if you can have this kind of faith that holds on, that endures, man, it's unshakable. Unshakable. So I just want to give you three just quick things, okay? Three quick things that I think that because we have this unshakable faith, these are the things that we can do. The first thing is we can practice gratitude for the things that will last. We can practice gratitude for the things that will last. What does that mean? That means that, man, we are grateful that we have the ability to gather here each and every week to celebrate our faith with other people who believe like us or other people who are on the journey to figuring out what it means to follow Jesus. Man, I'm telling you, some of the best relationship friends that I have in my life are people who were followers of Jesus alongside with me. That doesn't mean I don't have friends who aren't Christians. I have friends who aren't Christians because I love them and they're my friends and I want them to see Jesus as well too. But the friends that have held me through my tough times, the friends that have been with me, are those friends who believe just like I do. And so we practice that. We get around people. We gather together. We pray. We worship. We do those things. And we're thankful. So what does that mean? I mean, every day when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do, okay, I'm not perfect, but this is what I do. First day, I'd say a 30-minute prayer, or 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. That'd be really long. 30-second prayer every morning. And I just say, God, thank you so much for letting me wake today and the opportunity to serve you. That's it. And see, that's the kind of God we serve, because he loves that. Because it's acknowledging, God, I'm just grateful that I'm alive today. I know I'm not perfect. I know I'm going to mess up. I'm probably going to walk out that door and fart right now. That's bad. Sorry, I forgot this is high school, not junior high. You guys don't laugh at that kind of jokes. But anyways, I'm going to probably do something bad as soon as I walk out this door. And we serve a God who loves me even after whatever I do is bad. And he's going to stay with me the whole time. So I'm going to be grateful. And you can be grateful that you serve a God who loves you despite your mistakes. Here's the second thing. We can worship God because of the promise of heaven. Someday we're all going to die. I hate to tell you that. I don't know if you knew that or not, but someday you're going to die. And when that day comes and you take your last breath on earth, my prayer and my hope is that your next breath is taken in heaven. And that's why we worship God. Not just because he saves us from the burning fire, but because of heaven. Because we now get to have this great and beautiful opportunity to be with our Creator. That's why we worship him. And then the last thing we can do is we can not only be in awe of God's power and majestic and the things that he gives us, but we can be in awe of God's goodness, how good he is. Listen, none of us deserve Jesus' death. None of us deserve it. And yet God so freely gives it away. When he was on the cross, taking on our sins, you know what he was thinking about? You know what he wasn't thinking? He wasn't thinking about Chick-fil-A, because that's what I would have been thinking about. He was thinking about you and you and you and you and you and you and all of us. And he just thought, man, this sucks right now, but the benefit outweighs the suckiness. And so we should be in awe of that goodness, because an enduring faith celebrates what can't be shaken. And my hope is that for you guys, each and every day, that when you wake up, you get the joy of waking up tomorrow morning, that you will just, in your crusty eye, bad breathness, will say, God, thank you so much for today. Let me pray for you. Jesus, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for your grace, your truth, and your mercy, God, for your love, just for everything that you've done for us, that you've given us a faith, Lord, that can't be shaken, that even when everything else around us falls apart, when our friends leave us, when our parents fight, when our home feels not safe, when we're confused about the world around us, God, we know that you are still you and you still love us. And God, if there's anybody in this room this morning, Lord, that is still trying to figure out what it means to follow you, God, would you open their hearts to see your love, to see how unshakable you are. Lord, I pray that they would just say, you know what, I'm just going to give this a shot. I'm just going to give my life, I'm going to commit everything I got to you, Jesus, knowing that I'm not going to be perfect every day, but that you're still going to love me all the same. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.